For those who are in doubt, I think the last 6 days were ample evidence, unequivocal evidence that we're living under a dictatorship that is brutal and criminal.
The police have the right and the right to bash them. They will get arrested and get bashed by the police.
So they would single you out and beat you up with whatever they have. And one of the beatings was with a long iron bar.
And then heavy blows. And especially this blow on the head took place after that. So I fell down. I'm sure I passed out or whatever. So then when I saw blood all over.
Everybody who was made to lie down was shamboked.
I was subjected to a lot of beatings. In fact, it was random beatings, but I think the intention was to inflict as much harm as they could.
The attacks on Morgan and Lovemore in particular could only have been sanctioned by Mugabe himself. These we regard as attempted murder. These were not just common or garden assaults. You don't hit somebody around the head with an iron bar unless you're prepared to kill them.
They must remember the police are also armed. And because of the threats, we now must have our police well armed.
For ordinary people trying to get to the Save Zimbabwe campaign prayer meeting in Highfield, Harare, and for those who weren't, Sunday the 11th of March 2007 was a bad day. The riot police were on the streets in large numbers. Water cannon trucks were deployed and used. Tear gas was fired on this highly populated suburb in order to force people to disperse. Motor vehicles were stopped, searched, and prevented from entering the area.
We were stopped at a side road. The riot police took the keys from the leading two cars, and as a result we were all arrested. The first vehicle, which included the youth activists, was taken off to Machu Picchu, as we discovered later, and of course were beaten along with the rest of the people.
So we were not addressing any person, we were just driving.
It was almost as if they were waiting for me.
They made him lie down, and immediately a group went to actually beat him up. And you could see blood coming out. I didn't even know where it was coming out from.
For 15 to 25 minutes, it was just sustained assaults on the person of President Morgan Tsvangirai. Unbelievable.
Morgan was lying really there, unconscious, and with blood all over.
Apart from the brutal arrests of civic society leaders and the opposition political party members, scores of ordinary citizens were prevented from going about their ordinary Sunday business and were rounded up, beaten, and arrested. In some instances, the people's anger at once again being denied their basic freedoms spilled over into random acts of vandalism. The police retaliated with more than the usual bashing. They fired live ammunition without warning into the crowd. They shot and killed 40-year-old father of 3, Gift Tandare. His body was left for several hours where he fell before being taken away by the police. His family was devastated.
It was a total brutality, as I can say, and I'm too committed to that. It is very painful at the moment that I cannot talk too much on that issue because it's still touching my heart.
To add further to the family's grief, on the night of his death, as mourners gathered at his house, the police again, without warning, fired live ammunition at the mourners. 2 people were wounded, one of them severely. Friends and family tried to wash away the blood stains in preparation for the funeral.
We had the funeral of Gift Tandari. He was shot on Sunday by the police. He was shot dead, so we were at the funeral where the police came in the morning around 5 o'clock.
Then they started firing shots to the people. Then I was shot there.
Naison Mashambanaka was shot in the arm. Dixon Magondo was less fortunate. The police bullets smashed his ankle, and doctors were discussing the option of amputation. As the mourners tried to prepare for the funeral of Gift Tandari, the police returned again on the second night after his death. They targeted Naison Mashambanaka again, who received a second high-caliber bullet in the other arm. Other mourners were thrashed, had their property destroyed, and their cell phones confiscated. Even the elderly were beaten, punished for being related to a perceived opposition supporter. On this, the third day after the death, the police still had not returned the body to his family. Meanwhile, the condition of the Save Zimbabwe detainees was still unknown. Rumors of torture had yet to be verified, as access had been denied to their lawyers, families, and medical practitioners. The waiting crowds at Harare Magistrates Court were shocked as a truckload of visibly injured detainees, many in obvious need of urgent medical attention, was brought to court at around 12:45 on Tuesday, March the 13th. Though many had broken bones, their spirit was still intact. Several hours later, the magistrate ordered that all be taken to hospital, the more severely injured immediately in waiting ambulances. Although it was clear that there would be no charges, since the police were in contempt of a High Court order demanding the detainees be seen in court by 12 noon or be immediately released, nevertheless the injured were accompanied by large numbers of police.
It was a horrible assault.
Well, it was a
violence.
sadist attack on defenseless people.
A dozen or so of these people were arrested on the spot for this display of support. The hospital was cordoned off by the police, and late at night, those still able to walk were taken back to court under police escort. As no court official turned up, they were later released into the custody of their lawyers in flagrant contempt of the court ruling. Those severely injured remained in hospital, coming to terms with their traumatic experience.
And when I went back in the cell, I just said, I just asked God to look after my children. Because that's all I could think of. I didn't know, It was mostly my children.
The state was unrepentant.
We don't want people to start now provoking us into a situation where we would have to deal with them in a manner which they will regret.
1 week after being assaulted at Machipisa police station for attempting to attend the prayer meeting, elected Member of Parliament Nelson Chamisa was again attacked by suspected state agents who fractured his skull with an iron bar. He had been due to attend an ACP parliamentarians meeting in Brussels and was at the entrance to the main departure door at Harare Airport when the attack occurred in broad daylight.
There's no security, there's no protection. All of us are at risk.
On the same day, Sekai Holland and Grace Quinje were both prevented from leaving Harare Airport for medical treatment in South Africa and returned to hospital under police guard. Arthur Mtambara was also prevented from traveling to South Africa from the airport and was illegally detained in police cells. After days of waiting for the release of Gift Tandare's body, the relatives were prevented from holding a family funeral, and Mr. Tandare was buried secretly by the state. Scores have been arrested as part of a massive clampdown on the high-density suburbs. And as people's anger and frustration spilled onto the streets, a police camp in Harare and another in Gweru were firebombed, allegedly by opposition activists. 2 police women were badly burned.
We have to do something that will arrest the situation. There is a spiraling decline into an abyss of violence in this country, and this has been promoted by the Mugabe regime, who would like nothing better than to have a free-for-all, a state of emergency, to lock us all up and to unleash the degrees of violence that Mugabe seems to be so proud of.
I think one of the things that happened in the past 2 weeks is to really debunk the myth about the true nature of the Zimbabwean struggle. When you saw those Israeli-made water tanks going into Highfield, when you saw the injured faces of the people that were beaten, that had nothing to do with Tony Blair. That had nothing to do with George Bush. It was pure black violence against the black people.
How does a dictator explain having Israeli tankers permanently stationed in high-density suburbs? That is paranoia and fear on his part, and victory on our part.
Our aim and our objectives is to make Zimbabwe a democracy. That's all we are doing. We want our country to become a democracy that is run on the principles of good governance and the rule of law.
I think that it has given even us even more impetus to challenge this regime in ways that will bring this country back again to the community of nations. The fight for democracy has its pitfalls, but I'm sure that we will succeed.